So now what we're going to do is we're going to learn to use the sensors on the microbit to get familiar with the interface, to get familiar with the blocks, learning how to navigate the blocks, and how to set up a basic data collection system. So our microbit actually has a lot of sensors attached to it. You can access these sensors under the input block. And when you click the input block, you'll notice that you've got a number of different blocks on it. The microbit itself has buttons. That's on the front, so on button A, if I press it, I can have something happen. It has an accelerometer on it, so it knows if you're shaking it or not. You can also measure the acceleration in X, Y, and Z. It also has a microphone. It also has a magnetometer on it, so you can use it as a compass. It has a little radio antenna, so you can have microbits communicate with each other. It also has a speaker, and we're going to learn to use some of those. And once you learn to use one or two of them, they're all kind of basically the same. And so once you know how to use one, you're pretty good on learning how to use the rest of them. Okay, so let's start on collecting, say, I want to collect some temperature data, and maybe if it's a certain temperature, I might want to have an icon show up on my microbit or something like that. So I'm going to remove my show string mic from the microbit. And if you want more real estate up here, you can actually click this little arrow and your big microbit goes away, so you get more real estate for coding. That becomes really useful as your code gets more complicated. So I'm going to go to input, and let's say I want temperature. So there's my temperature in Celsius, but notice it doesn't really fit anywhere in here, right? Because everything is supposed to snap together as blocks. So I'm going to need to create a variable or like a container to store that information in. So I'm going to go to variables. I'm going to make a variable, and I'm going to call this one temp. Right? And once you make it, you get some new blocks. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use this variable here. I'm going to say set temperature to my temp reading. Okay? Now that's great. It's now going to be reading the data off of the microbit, but I also want to be able to see it. So I can go back to my basic block, and I'm going to say I want to show a string, and I'm going to say temp is. Okay? Then let's imagine that if I wanted to show that number, I will go back to my basic block and I will drag this block show number. And I can do two things here. I've got my variable temp. I could put that there, or I also literally could just go back to my input block and just drag this temperature right here. Okay, it's nice to have a variable, because then if I want to use this temp variable somewhere else later, I'll have it. So it's a good practice, I think, just to set up the variables. And once we've got it in my forever loop, this is going to run forever. The temperature should scroll right across my microbit. Let's click download. It's downloading to my microbit. And there it says temp is colon 30 degrees. So 30 degrees Celsius. Yep. So that's how we collect the temperature data. But let's imagine that we wanted to do something else. I would go back up to my input. Let's say I wanted to use my buttons. I would drag my on button A block over, and notice it's like our forever loop, right? So this block right here is always running at the same time as my forever loop. So they're kind of in parallel to each other. But let's say that every time I hit my basic button or my A button, I wanted the heart icon to appear. Right? And you can duplicate blocks by clicking on them, and you can right click and choose duplicate, or you can do a Control C and then a Control V, or Command if you're on an Apple. So I'm going to duplicate this, and I'm going to change that to B, and I'm going to change my icon to an X for B. Okay. All right. So now I'm going to download this program. Awesome. So now if I hit my button A after it finishes running through my forever loop, there we go. I got my heart icon. All right. And now if I keep hitting my button B right after it shows me my temperature, I should get my X icon. Awesome. Alright. So notice the forever loop is always running. And so when you're having buttons, right, they're kind of competing with each other, right? But that is how you use the A button. Now what I'm going to do now is let's use these buttons as like data collection points. So I'm going to take everything out of my forever loop. And when you drag it out over out of the block, notice it grays out. That's like commenting it out of the code. So it's still there, but when you download it, it's not compiled and it's not a part of the program. And so that way, if I ever want it back, I can just pop it right back in and it changes back to its regular colors. Okay. So what I want to do is I'm going to drag these two blocks out of my on A and on B, and I'm going to want to collect my temperature data when I press A, and I want to collect, say, my light data when I press B. So I've already got these blocks written over here, right? I've got a temperature variable for temperature, and my temp is for temp, so I'm going to pop that in. And to speed up my string scrolling across, I'm just going to say T equals. So that will speed up the text. Now for B, I want to do something similar. I'm going to go over to my variables. I'm going to make a new variable, and I'm going to call it light. Okay. I'm going to go into my B, and I'm going to set my light variable to, from the input block, light level. I'm going to drag that over. And now I'm going to do the same thing as I did in my on button A. And what I'm going to do is I'm just going to go to basic. I'm going to show string again. I'm going to say L equals for light. And then I'm going to go back to my basic block and I'm going to show number. And this time I'm going to do my variable and I'm going to drag the light over. Again, I could have just put the light level there and I could have skipped the variable creation step at this point if I wanted to. Okay. So now I've got on button A, on button B, nothing in my forever loop. So now when I download my program, nothing should appear on my microbit because no program is really running. But the A and B are programs that are waiting to do something, right? They're waiting for an input. So now if I hit A, I get T equals 30. And now if I hit B, I get L equals 197. So that's my lux level for the room right now. So, and that's how I would collect those two pieces of data. All right, so now we've got a rough understanding of how we can use the internal sensors for my microbit. And again, you can get a sound reading, you can have a little arrow pop up for direction, you can have an accelerometer show up. But this is the basic idea of how we utilize our microbit and its onboard sensors.